Welcome back and welcome to a special guest, Jessi Cruickshank, host of the Facebook Live show, New Mom, Who Dis? Watching you on Facebook Live and on Instagram, Jessi, you know I love you. I love your sense of humor. That's why we always have you come on the show. You are so self-deprecating, and sort of poking fun at yourself while being a mom. So I want to know where the idea for the show came from.
I'm a comedian. I'm in television. I had this opportunity to pitch a comedy show to Facebook Watch. And the morning of the pitch, I had this whole big concept. The morning of the pitch, I'm standing there trying to curl my hair with one hand. I have 4-month-old twins. One is on the bathroom counter. The other one I'm breastfeeding. He spits up onto the other side of my hair that I have been curling. And in that moment, I was like, well, this is the show. This is what's funny. And so I wanted to create something that wasn't like that perfect Instagram version of motherhood. That was the real life funny version. And the show has now turned into like this community of funny, like-minded moms. We just launched the New Mom Who Dis Instagram page. So like it's just turned into something much bigger than I originally conceptualized in that moment.
Well, November is Prematurity Awareness Month. So every year, 30,000 preemies are born in Canada. And Jessi, your two boys, Rio and Dre, who are now 3 years old, were born prematurely and spent their first 2 weeks in NICU. So tell me a little bit about that experience.
I mean, I will say it was not what I expected from my first days of motherhood. I had this idea of that perfect Instagram birth where you're cradling, you're doing skin to skin, you're breastfeeding. I thought that would happen for me to the point where now this is the funniest part. I packed not one, not two, but 3 silky floral robes for the hospital, thinking I would be posing in gorgeous ethereal robes with my newborns. Cut to, I am bleeding in under a mesh diaper with like a hospital gown in a wheelchair looking at my babies in incubators. My boys were 3 and 4 pounds each. They were pulled out of my arms, whisked away to the NICU where they were hooked up to oxygen and feeding tubes. And I just, you never imagine that that's what's going to be your first days of motherhood, first weeks of motherhood, first months for many moms. And it was really, really hard.
Yeah, you must have to spend a lot of time sort of readjusting your expectations for that time period, Jessi. I want to introduce you to another mom that we have with us today. It's Brienne Ducharme. So, Brienne, you were on bed rest with a high-risk pregnancy for 2 months, and then your girls Zoe and Ella were born early at 31 weeks. So what was it like for you? What happened after they were born?
Well, like Jessi said, it was nothing like what you envision it to be. Like any birth plan goes right out the window. So they were born early. We couldn't deliver at our local hospital because they were before, at that point they couldn't do it at 32 weeks. So it was a very unusual birth as well. And then I was released from hospital and they were still there. So my husband and I, we ended up staying in a hotel nearby for a bit, because the thing about the NICU as well is that you can't just go and pick up your baby. Like, you have handling time. So along with adjusting to all the things that Jessi had mentioned about like the tubes and the monitors, and it's almost like somebody referred to it as a casino. It's as bright and loud as a casino when you go in there. And then after 5 weeks, we're just in there. I was in there, I think 6 to 8 hours a day, doing basically shift work of you're trying to feed them. They've got tubes, they've got CPAP machines, they've got all this stuff, and they're both 3 pounds, like they're identical girls, like by 0.01 ounce since the day they were born. And you're just trying to figure out how to wipe a little butt that's like smaller than anything you ever envisioned, and like the diaper sizes are just like, they're like this big. And so we're just trying to wrap our heads around taking care of these little 3-pound beings.
What an experience. Oh my goodness. Now, you are the best advocate for your children, but in a circumstance like this, you got to feel powerless and a bit overwhelmed going through that roller coaster of emotions. So how did you handle the stress? Jessi, I'll start with you.
I cried a lot. There was a lot of crying. And I think it was good. I was letting it all go. There was a lot of hormones going through. But one day, I'll never forget this, because it's exactly what you described. It is like a casino. The minute, when oxygen level dips, it's like a ding, 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 and the nurses rush. It's this high stress environment. And one day I went to go pick up their birth certificates in the normal floor, the maternity ward. And I'm just walking by rooms of moms cradling babies, feeding babies. And I just started weeping in the middle of the maternity ward, heaving, convulsive crying. And like, nobody really looked at me like anything was wrong. I'm sure it's happened before down there, but it was like, I felt like I would never have that experience.
For Brienne, for you, how did you figure out ways to sort of connect and bond with your babies while they were in NICU?
I know that when they were in the NICU, I just kind of listened to the bosses in there, like the nurses and the doctors, because as terrible as a feeling as it is of not being able to bring your babies home, I was just going to embrace whatever chaos I could embrace at that point. And at that point, it was just, okay, you say I should do this, I'm going to do this.
Listen, I give you props, and thank you for walking us through that, actually, because I think a lot of us that haven't been in that situation don't know how overwhelming it is, and how powerless you feel, sort of having these beings outside of your body and being in this whole space that you can't even easily access. Thank you, Brienne, so much for chatting with us about your experiences. Jessi, it is so nice to see you again. And I love the fact that you've partnered with Pampers. So Pampers is donating more than 200,000 diapers to support Canadian NICU families via the Canadian Premature Babies Foundation. In November and December, every time you use the hashtag Pampers for Preemies, Pampers will donate an extra diaper to support the Canadian Neonatal Network. So find out more and how you can donate. All that information is on our website. That is cityline.tv. Thank you, Jessi and Brienne, for joining us to talk about this.